So very good evening, folks. I am Bhavesh. I'm a Google DSC lead at LPU and a Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador at the level of Beta. And today, this session to become on Git and GitHub, you will be expert. I'm sure about that after attending the sessions. And I'm going to hold the session. However, I'm not going to speak anything for this session. So entire session will be taken by Jaideep Prasad. Jaideep currently he's the SWE software development engineer at Vedantu, and he's the Google Summer of Code fellow for 2 times 2019 and 2020. For this year, he's a mentor as well as, and he was ex SD Internet Geo and Trail. Also, he has opened his startup called Mentro, where he and his team provide free mentorship, all the internship related stuffs, all the open source programs, and all such things. So he's the founder for and CEO for Mentro. And once again, this session is going to organized by me as the host, as the Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador, in collaboration with Developer Student Club LPU and the Jaideep startup. The name is Mentro. So we are good to start, and I guess this is enough introduction for Jaideep. Jaideep, if you like to give your introductions for a quick introduction from your side, good to go. Over to you, Jaideep.
Sure, Bhavesh, sure. Thanks for the warm welcome, guys. I hope all the attendees are in good health. Current situation, I hope everybody is staying safe, staying in, right? So take care, everyone. So first of all, thanks for joining in today, guys. Taking out time from your weekends and joining in to learn something to out of, right? So as Bhavesh mentioned, so today we'll be talking about Git and GitHub and how exactly that works, like much more of a practical session wherein you will get hands-on like experience of things like how exactly you need to work with, right? So yeah, so let's proceed further, right? So yeah, so as Bhavesh mentioned, I won't spend a lot of time here. So I'm currently building something which is for the community. So these details I'll share like more with clarity in some time, right? So that you guys can take benefit out of it, right? So, and apart from that, I am currently working at Vedantu, and my past experiences have been at 12 Geo, it is my end, right? And I've been a Google fellow at Aussie and Causation as well, right? I've been also like Twitter and Aussie, right? So you guys can follow me up at GitHub, like it's at the rate JP, right? India. So you will be able to see what all I've been doing. Right? Yeah. So now starting off with today's session, right? So let's talk about some introduction, like since our session is on Git and GitHub. So what exactly Git is, right? So Git is basically a distributed version control system, used for tracking changes in a large code base, right? So it is designed for coordinating work among programmers, right? So you will see like there are a lot of new terms here, right? Like which you will find it difficult to understand, right? But we will break it down so you know. So it is actually can be understood as a code tracker and as a guardian for your code. So yeah, so let's move on to understand like in a bit detail, right? So essentially, like in the previous slide, we learned about version control system. Basically, in short, it's called as VCS, right? So it's actually key part when you have a large code base, right? So as you progress with your work, right? Like on a daily basis, like keep on writing more and more code, right? So things tend to change, right, over time. Like for example, on the first day, what your code base might have like consisted of 1 or 2 files, right? But after 30 days, it might happen that your code base is like having say 30 to 50 files, right, with a lot of changes, right? So it's very hard to keep a track of things like at what point of time, what changes you made, or how you made exactly you made, right? Or maybe it also can happen that like you have got a team of maybe 8 and multiple people are working on that project at the same time, right? So the things can run in parallel, right? But you need to take ownership of the things which are happening, right? So here Git plays a very major part, right? So you can actually see who has made what change and like so that everyone knows about what they are working on, and like you also have a clarity that what my coworker or peer is actually working about, right? So it actually helps you to maintain your code as well, right? All the history, like whatever has been going on for say the last 2 to right. Right. So all this is actually taken care by it, and it actually helps a lot when I'm talking about like industry level development, like a large scale software development, right, where multiple people are working, and especially from different places, right? So the best thing about Git is that you don't need to be like sitting in one room and like working on the same thing together, right? You can like sit at different places around the world and still like be able to work on your
Uh, sorry, Jaideep. Sorry. If you can hear me, your voice is too low. I can't hear you. Even I just joined with the Bluetooth earphone. Can you just make your mic with your
yeah.
mouse?
Am I audible right now?
Yeah, now it is.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Bhavesh. So I hope like you guys got a bit of idea like what, right? So essentially, like Git actually works as a guardian for your code, right? Like it keeps the track of your like entire history of whatever has been going on, right? Along with your like coworkers or peers who are sitting at maybe different places of the world, but that are working on the same piece of code at the same point of time, right? So essentially, that is how like that is the main motive behind the existence of Git. Like why was it invented? Like it the main motive was to let people work in parallel, like on the same set of things, and like encourage multiple people to see a piece of code, and maybe if they are like interested in like maybe working on it, right, they can actually start making contributions from anywhere in the world, right? So this is why like this is the very existence of open source, like why it was right. So this is how Git helps us, right? Like we will cover like on a very hands-on basis things like branches and merging kind of things. So that will be a bit of a hands-on session, right? So yeah, so this was the whole ideology behind Git, right? So now moving on into like let's try to understand it in right. So essentially, like you can imagine Git as something which sits on top of your file system and manipulates files, right? So this is something like a tree structure which with each commit, which is created as a new node in the tree, right? For example, like if you have a tree and like in Git we have something called commit, which we will discuss later in the session, right? So the number of commits you keep on creating, the like you can think that more and more leaves and nodes are getting created in the tree provided, right? So yeah, so that is how like you can imagine Git as, right? It serves as a tree for your entire project or code base, right? Yeah. So and also you know there are multiple commands associated with Git which you can use to navigate through the whole tree and like see what at what point of time what all things have changed, right? So all these things can be possible, and Git provides you those facilities, right? So yeah, so this is what like you can understand about Git, right? So this is the essentially the whole essence of Git, right? Right. So now moving on. So when we learn about Git, there is something called a repository, right? So what a Git repository is, like its main purpose is to manage a project or a set of files which change over time, like as we discussed, right? So this information is in a data structure, like in a format, and that is essentially which is called repository. So the repository actually revolves around that tree which we talked about, right? So that entire repository will have your entire project, and like the entire code base will be consisted in that repository, and all the history and changes like it will be in that repository, right? So it will mainly consist of all those nodes which we are talking about earlier in the slide, like in a tree. Like once you start creating commits, there will be multiple or leaves which are getting created in that tree, right? So essentially that is like that repository will contain a set of commits, right? So yeah, so this is what a
Jaideep,
repository is, right?
sorry to interrupt. Sorry to interrupt you. I
Yeah,
guess
yeah.
I'm getting so many messages. Jaideep, you had a mic, right? That microphone for the session. Can you just go with that because voice is not up to the audience.
Okay. So let me just
Configure, yeah, configure it. Please do that. Please do that. Yeah, folks, allow some time. Jaideep will choose another mic, so I'm sure that you will hear him properly.
So great. Let me just
Run live.
quickly share my screen. Yeah. Right. So essentially, like, should we maybe make a quick revision of things? Like, if my audio wasn't like up to the mark, maybe.
Please go that. Please, Jaideep, just make a revise. That would be more great.
Yeah, sure. So essentially, I'll just brief it up a bit, like for people who had difficulty in hearing things, right? So essentially, what Git is like, you can think Git as of a guardian or a code tracker for your entire code base, right? It will store the entire history and like what all changes which you have been making, right, over a period of time, right? It will be responsible for all those, right? And you can like at any point of time you can look through the history and see which person has made like which change, right? So essentially, as I was talking about, like this was the very essence of open source, right? So that multiple people can actually work on a single piece of code at the same point of time, right? But sitting from different places in the world, right? They can work in parallel, right, without having to come together in one room and then start working, right? So this is essentially the very motivation behind open source, right? And Git actually serves you in like doing that, right? So yeah, and that is how we covered about VCS, which is as more and more code you start adding up, right? Like, and also people will be working on parallel, right? So this version controlling system, which is Git, right, will be maintaining all that for you, right? And of course, like branching and merging is something which we'll be covering with the hands-on in the hands-on session, right? So yeah, like you guys, like I think you guys might have like taken a screenshot or something of this, right? So as I was saying, you can think it as of a complete tree, right? And as time progresses, like with each commit, new nodes keep on getting created on the tree itself, right? And this entire tree is what makes up a repository, right? So this repository is basically nothing but a set of commits for a certain project, right? So yeah, so this is what a Git repository is all about, right? So yeah, so now coming to the command line terminal, right? So this will be starting for your like hands-on session. Will like start from scratch and then like move on to making a live contribution as well, right? So yeah, so essentially you'll be using quite a lot this command line terminal, right? So we call it like CLI, like, right, like it's the command line interface. So like you might have seen like all these movies and or maybe your friends, right, opening up this terminal thing and right like writing some code and maybe doing stuff, right? So this is what that command line is for, right? So we can run scripts on through it, right? We can use, of course we can use Git through it, right? So we'll be using it, right, for making your contributions and working on your project, right? So moving forward, right? So again, as I said, this is a text-based application for viewing, handling, and manipulating files on your computer, right? So even if you don't have a file explorer, for example, on Windows we have a file explorer, right? And Mac we have got a Finder, right? So essentially, even if you don't have access to all those things, but if you have access to a command line interface, you can actually navigate through like different directories and make changes to all those files and directories right from the command line interface itself, right? So it's certainly very helpful when I'm talking about from the developer's point of view or programmer's point of view, right? So yeah, so now then I think we should start on with the hands-on thing, and we will be working, like we will be going from right from scratch, right? Like we will be going through like what are the very initial steps for maybe starting out with a project. We will be up and will be ending up with uploading your project on GitHub and then making and learn about how to make a pull request so that you can contribute to other repositories as well, right? Maybe some other projects as well, right? So we'll be understanding all that, right? So yeah, so I think if my screen is entirely visible, we can start out with the terminal. I'll just quickly open up my terminal. Is my terminal visible, Bhavesh and people?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. Awesome.
visible.
Awesome. So essentially, guys, this will be like your terminal. Like even if you guys open it up, right? So this will be your terminal, right? So yeah, so you can get access of it like from your main applications, like whatever all set of applications you have, right? You can just open it up on like Windows. Maybe it will be, you can use command line, right? And maybe for doing git work, you can actually install git bash, right? So you can just search it up. So it's basically just a Google search away. You can just search it up like install git bash on your machines, and you can just directly install it, right? So no worries on that, right? So everything is just a Google search away these days, right? So awesome. So now let's try to understand like how things work, right? So for example, let us suppose that we are trying to create a project, right, with some files in it, right? Maybe a code file, right? So let's just open it up, right? For example, let me just navigate to my desktop, right? Yeah, and therein I'll make maybe a project name, right? Like maybe some demo project, right? Cool. So I have essentially made a demo project. Let me just quickly show you. Right, so as you can see in my desktop, a folder has been created named demo project, right? So that is what we did with this mkdir command. So this stands for make directory, right? If you guys don't know already, so this stands for make directory. You actually create a directory through this command, right? And for example, now you say, for example, if you look into this folder, so it will be completely empty, right? So let's say we just maybe start create some text file, right? So maybe just let me, so I'll use this echo command, right? And put the init text in the text file, right? So let me give this file a name, right? So yeah, so as you can see, this command has ran successfully. So if I open this, right, so it has actually created as you can see demo file txt, right? So I think I wasn't in the demo project folder, so let me just quickly move into the demo project folder with the cd command, right? So cd stands for, again, change directory, right? So if I have changed the directory, right, and there I'll run the command again. So as now you will see, like this demo file.txt has got created in this folder, right? So if you will open it up, like as you can see, like whatever I had written, like with the init message, this txt file has been created with that message, right? So now if I want to say right, so essentially for example, you can think that you have started working on a project, and for example, if you are working on an Android project or a web project, you have initialized the project with all the default files, right? You can think this something like that, right? So this demo project folder essentially will you can think this of your entire project folder, right, which consists of all your files and stuff which you'll be working on over a period of time, right? So yeah, so now that you have you are into that folder and you have started working on it, right? So you need to run a command which is called git init, right? So what it will do, it will initialize an empty as you can see, it initialized an empty repository in the demo project folder, right? So now you can use all your git commands in this folder, right? So this will serve as your, you can think this as of your project which will be trying to upload on GitHub and maybe making pull requests or maybe working it over for a period of time, right? So yeah, so now that you have initialized your git repository, right? Now you can you have git set up on your project, right? Now you, like, git has access to all your history of whatever changes you are going to do over period of time, right? So now if you want to check the status of your your repository, so as you can see, I did a spelling mistake here, yeah. So yeah, so now as you can see that it shows that here there is a file which is not yet staged, right? And it's yet to, like, it's not tracked yet, right? So essentially in git what we have is called a add command and a commit command, right? So what add does is that whatever changes you have made for, say, from morning to, or maybe, for example, you've started working at morning and you are trying to save your changes, right, at the evening, right? So whatever work you have done from morning till evening, right, you can actually use the add and commit commands simultaneously, right, to actually stage those changes. So what staging means, that it actually makes your files ready for being saved, right? And what the commit command actually does is actually saves all those things finally, right? So essentially now, as you can see, you have made the change, like a demo, it's showing that here this file is untracked, right? So what you can do, you can run the git add dot command, so it will stage everything all right. So if you run the git status command again, so as you will see that it's now turned green, right? So it's showing that these changes are ready to be committed, right? So now you can actually commit these changes, right? So if you run the git commit command, as I said, that the add and commit commands run in parallel, right? So if you run the git commit, this -m, so you can actually add a message with your commit as well, right? For example, if you are returning to this commit at some other point of time, right, you will have a look at this message and you will remember what all changes you had done on this, right? So yeah, so maybe we can write that this is the initial commit, right? Demo file, right? Right. So now that we have added the message, we can hit enter. So you will see that this file has been saved or committed essentially in terms of git, right? So now if you again like uh, run the status on this branch, right? So essentially it's showing that you are currently on branch master and there is nothing to commit, of course, because you have saved everything. So and after that you haven't made any changes, right? So essentially you have done your work here, right, for maybe today, right? So yeah, so now you have seen that like there is nothing to commit for now, right? Now talking about a bit about branches here. So as you see, like here it's mentioned that on branch master, right? So as we were talking about, you can think about git as a tree. So essentially, like this is also something which is very much relatable when I'm talking about a tree, right? So on a tree you get like different branches, right? So there are a lot of branches on the tree, like, right? So essentially what even similar to git, so for any project, right, you can create multiple branches, right, and work simultaneously on those branches with like for different changes, right? So this is also something which is recommended very much when I'm talking about how to work with git and github, right? So always try to whatever changes you are making, always try to make create different branches and then make your changes, then try to create a pull request to the actual main or master branch, right? So this main or master branch will be the principal branch of your the repository, right, where the actual code, like the production code or maybe the main code will be stored. Like in most of the organizations, they have their master branch as their main, but in some organizations they also have like divisions. For example, maybe a dev branch, right, where people are, where the contributors and developers are actually working, and then there is a separate branch called production branch, right, where like all the releases and production things actually happen, right? So essentially this is what like branching is all about, right? So that everything is cleaned up and is kept at separate places, right? And multiple people can work upon things, right? So it's always recommendable, like even if you are trying to contribute to any organization, like once you clone the project, right, you can create your own branch, right, and then make your changes, and then we will see today how to create a pull request, and then we can do that, right? So for example, now like continuing on this, so now we have got nothing to add or nothing to commit, right? So what we can do is that now, like let's link up a GitHub repository with this project, right? So that we can maybe upload this project onto GitHub, right? So I'll quickly open up my GitHub, right? Right, cool. So I'll go to my repositories, right? Right, awesome. So I'll just create a new repository, maybe for example, say uh, demo project, right? Cool. So let's keep it a public repository for now. I'll just create this repository. So this is the process which you guys can also follow along, right? If you have got a GitHub account, right? So you can follow along, right? So essentially, once you do that, once you initialize the empty repository, right, you will get a page like this where you can copy this HTTPS link and add it as a remote to your project, right? So essentially now talking about what remote is, right? So it's an online location where you can store your code base, right? For example, like if you want to host it on, maybe store it on GitHub or maybe on GitLab, right? You can add multiple remotes to your project, right? And it will handle all those things. For example, tomorrow if you want to push it on GitLab, you can do that, or today if you want to push it on GitHub, you can do that by having multiple remotes, right? So now how to exactly add a remote to your project, right? So you can run this command, git remote, right? Git remote add, right? And paste your the URL which you copied from GitHub or GitLab or whatever, right? So once you run the command, right, it will show that it has added, right? For example, you need to mention a name to your remote, right? So primarily we use something called a origin, right? So like what origin is, that you can think origin as your, like, maybe when we'll be working on a larger project base, right? You can keep two remotes, right? One remote will be named as upstream, right, which will be the main project. For example, say if you are working on Google Chrome, right, you can like have their upstream branch, right, which is their repository URL, right? You can add their URL as in the upstream branch, and whatever your fork is, right, you can actually name it as origin and you can add it as your remote, right? So here, since it's my project, I will simply make it named as origin, right? So git remote add origin and the URL, right? So now as you see, it has run successfully, right? So now if I want to see what all remotes I have, like associated with this project, I will simply run this git remote -v command, right? And it will, as you can see, it will show you that what all remotes are associated with this project, right? So essentially you can see that here we have got origin, which is, and it will also show you the URL of your online remote, right? So now that you have your remote set up, right, and also you have had your changes committed and everything is saved on your repository. So what you need to do is that you need to run the git push origin, your remote name, and whatever branch you want to push on. So since you are on the master branch, we will simply write git push origin master and hit enter, and it will push your changes on the GitHub repository, right? So as you can see, it has pushed your changes on the master branch. So if you are on this repository, you can simply just refresh the page. So as you can see, here your demo project has been initialized, and whatever changes we had made locally, it's available on GitHub as well, right? So yeah, so this is how you actually upload your project or push your code base onto an online remote. For example, like as we saw today, it's on GitHub, right? So essentially now that we have understanding of initial things, like how things work, right? So now let's see like exactly like how to actually work on when you are working on a bigger project, right? As I said, that you need to create different branches and then make your changes, right? So let's see like how exactly we can do that, right? So for example, you can again, like if you have forgotten like on which branch you are, you can simply run the git status command and it will show you that okay, you are on branch master, right? So now what you need to, like, to create a new branch, right, from the master branch, right, you need to run the git checkout command, right? So this will create a new branch for you with a -b, right? Git checkout -b and your new branch name, right? So for example, let us write new branch, right? This will be the name of our new branch, right? So once we run that command, it will show you that you have switched to a new branch named new branch, right? So awesome. Now you are on new branch, right? So now whatever change, so let us open our project, right? So for example, this is our project and this is our demo file.txt, right? So for example, let us write some different things, right? For example, let us just for the sake of understanding of things, right? So let us just do this, right? I'm just showing a simple example, right? So cool. So now, for example, you have made such a change, right? So now that you've made, you can just simply like save this one, right? So now all these changes have been whatever changes you have made, this will be on the new branch which you have created, right? So if you go to your terminal again and if you check the your status of this branch, so as you can see, it is showing that this file has been modified, right? So so as you can see, so I just run the git diff command. So what this diff command it will do is that it will show what exactly the changes have been, right? So as you can see, it's showing quite clearly, like in a very interactive manner, that right, that initially it had these changes, and after in my current branch, whatever things I've added newly, so these are the lines which have been added newly, right? So it's showing very interactively, right? So yeah, so this is what the git diff actually does, right? It actually shows you the difference between at any 2 points of commits, right? Whatever your last commit was and whatever your current set of changes are, it clearly shows you that whatever changes you have done currently, right? So for example, now that say you are happy with the changes and you want to again save these changes, right? So as we discussed earlier, for saving things, we run the git add and git commit command simultaneously, right? So for example, let's write initiated code, right, with the commit message, right? So once you do that, it will show you that this has been changed, right? So currently, if you see the git status of your repository, right, it will show you that you are on new branch and there is nothing more to commit or save, right? So if you open up the file, you will able to see that what all changes you had made recently, those will be available in the file, right? So now, for example, now that you have done with these changes, right? So if you return back to maybe the master branch, right, which was initially, so now it will show you that it has switched back to master, right? So now if you open up the file, it will show you the previous changes, right? Because of course you made those changes in a new branch, right? So the master branch is actually untouched, right? Whatever changes those were there on the master branch, they are still there, right? So no changes have been made on that file, right? So essentially those changes have been made in the whatever new branch you had created, right? So let us check out the new branch again, right? Yeah, so now let us open up this file again. So as you can see, we got our again recent changes, right? So this is something very cool which you can achieve through git, right? Like at the same point of time you can create multiple branches and work simultaneously on the same file, right? So this is what the very existence of open source is all about, right? So now that we have saved everything on our new branch as well, it's time to actually push it on our GitHub repo, right? So what we will do, since everything is saved, we will just type in the git push command again, right, with our remote name, which is origin, right, and our branch name, right? So since we are on the new branch, so we will just write git push origin new branch, right? And it will push your changes on the new branch. As you can see, it has created a new branch. And once so if you see simultaneously on my GitHub, right, it is showing me that some new changes have been pushed on new branch, and you can actually create a pull request, right? So even if you don't see this message, I'll just show you how exactly you can actually create a pull request. So here in the pull request section, you can just go there and click on the new pull request button, right? And here you will see able to see like how you can actually compare changes, right? So what essentially you need to do, what essentially this means is that, like, this is the base branch, right? Like from like into which you want your code to be merged, and this is the place like from where you want your code to be merged, right? Like from where you have made your changes, right? So we know that we have made our changes on the new branch exactly, right? So now once you do that, it will show you that okay, it will be able to merge, and it will also show you quite clearly what all changes you have made and in which file you have made, right? So once you are happy with all those things, right, you can just simply create a pull request and maybe give it a good title, right, and a good description as well, right? So once you do that, you can go ahead and create a pull request, right? So once you will be able to do that, you can see your like pull request, right, open in the pull request section, right? So if the maintainer or admin from the particular repository wants, they can like merge your pull request in their master branch, right? So this is essentially how exactly like you actually make a contribution to a repository, right? So you create your own branch, right, make your changes, commit them and push them, right? And after you push them, you come to your GitHub in the pull request section like of the actual repository, right? And then you actually click on the new pull request button as we saw, and then in that fashion you can just create your pull request, right? So this was the entire process, right? How you actually push your own project to GitHub, right? Through a remote, right? And then how you can create different branches, how you can make changes to those branches, and how you can actually push your changes on those branches, right? So essentially this was like the entire flow which we covered. So I hope like you like a lot of things got cleared for you, right? So yeah, so I think that would be that for our hands-on session for today, right? So of course we'll be seeing you in next sessions. We'll be doing more sessions in the future, right, with more details and maybe some more topics as well. So you can connect with me on LinkedIn as well, right? So on Twitter and email, right? So also like one thing which I should mention is that all those commands which we saw today, right? Like you might be like feeling like how exactly we could run those commands, or from where we actually maybe if what if there was a compiled set of things which we can take use of, and from there we can run those commands one after another, right? You don't need to actually memorize those things, you can just look at, right? So essentially I'll be sharing it on the meet itself with Bhavesh. You can just simply share our like Mentro's website and
Yeah.
APK links and
Sure,
all
sure.
those, right? So what you guys need to do is that you guys need to actually download the APK, right? Like Bhavesh, it would be great if you can just quickly share
Yeah,
it
yeah, yeah.
for the chat itself,
Sure.
right? So people can
Uh,
down. Yeah,
there is 1 minute, 1 minute. I'm just continuing one. And I'll be going there.
sure,
Just
sure,
give me a moment. Yeah.
sure.
Give me. Yeah. Uh, okay. So I'm sure that everybody has got the idea like how Git works. Uh, Thank you so much, Cherry, for giving your valuable time to make this session wonderful. So is there any questions you can ask in the Q&A section? We're good to start the Q&A. Any questions, folks? Just ask in the Q&A section, please. Okay. Any questions, guys? Cherif, I will do everything. We'll send the recording with the mail, so entire details will be there. All right.
Right, awesome.
Right. Just, just, just do something. How was the session, guys? Just say thumbs up. So, guys, I'm extremely sorry. I'm sure that you don't have a question. That's why you're not asking. In the beginning, we had a technique if I asked Princess about this from our site. Jaideep wasn't able to make to log in the session, so I'm asking extremely sorry for this. I believe that you have enjoyed the session, and in future, I'm going to take the session where I'll be taking, because my domain is cloud, I'll be taking the session of the Microsoft Azure with all the services. So I'll be sending all the details via mail, those who have joined today. So everything will be everything will be mailed to you folks. So I'll be taking the session from my end. So the session today was all about Git and GitHub, and I can see the message from Siddharth. Go inside about GitHub. Jaideep, if you want to tell something about Mentro, you are good to go. You can do that.
Yeah, sure. So
Yeah,
essentially, let me just quickly share my screen again. Let
sure.
me know if my screen is visible, right?
Okay.
Yeah, my screen is visible. Yeah, okay, cool. No issue. I'll just like tell people
Yeah,
about
just
the
speak
thing,
about
right?
that.
Yeah, sure. So essentially, guys, what we at Mentor are trying to do, right, is that we are trying to make mentorship accessible to everybody, right? Because we believe in the fact that you don't need to enroll in a maybe like a full-time course or in maybe a full-time batch, to get help or something, right? Like for to get guidance, like to get your doubts solved, right? course, self-preparation, self-study is something which we completely value, right? And that is something which actually, helps you get to what you want to achieve, right? Until and unless you put in efforts by within yourself and you invest time by yourself, right, you won't be able to achieve that, right? So essentially you need to self-invest, right? And we at Mentro are trying to provide you the support which I think everybody deserves, right? Like you don't need to pay like huge amounts of money to some big courses, right, to get enrolled in big courses, right, or all those kind of things. Like we have mentors who are working at Google, Microsoft, Amazon, right? So Bhavesh will simply share you the application link. You guys just download the app, right? Go through it. You can connect with me on the Mentro app itself, and like we can get on a one-to-one call session, and I'll be very happy to help you get your doubts and questions clarified, right? So yeah, so that is something which we certainly believe, right? And of course, other than that, we have got all the set of resources welcome, like whatever things which we covered today over Git and GitHub, right? There is, if you have downloaded the app, which is if you do a simple search like Mentro on Play Store, you can download the app, and if you see on the application itself, right, there is an open source section where all the topics of Git and GitHub are very well compiled along with all the commands which we were running today, right? So essentially everything is covered there and everything is well compiled, right? So yeah, so that is something which you can surely take care of.
Jaideep, Jaideep, we have a one question from Vaishnavi or Vaishnav. She's asking that how can you fix a broken commit?
Beg your pardon, what you were saying?
Yeah, so she's asking how can you fix a broken commit?
How can we fix a broken commit, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so essentially what you need to do is so there is a command called stash, right? So what that stash does, that whatever change, for example, say if you have made something by mistake, right? Like if you have made any changes by mistake, you can actually stash it off, right? You can actually stash it off, and maybe if you need it after some point of time, or maybe if you even if you don't need it, it will be remain in your stash, right? So essentially you can do it, you can run the command, and whatever changes you want to make after that, like from a fresh, right, you can actually make those changes, right? So you can surely take help of the git stash command, right? And apart from that, if you don't want to stash it, you can of course revert it as well, right? For example, if you have made some changes wrongly and you want you understand the fact that okay, I won't be needing these changes at all, right? So you can actually like in the interactive terminal, you can actually revert it, right? Like revert to the previous commit, right, which was before whatever changes you have made, right? So you can do that. So all these commands which I'm saying, like git stash, git revert, right? So all these things are covered on the Mentro app, right? If you just go through it, right, everything is available there, and of course you can get in touch with me if you have any doubts, or get in touch with any of the mentors. We have got some very awesome mentors working at top product companies, right? So they will be very happy to help you out, right, in this regard. So of course, right, so all these comments essentially that should provide you the answer, right? You can use the git stash and git revert commands to essentially roll back and correct your changes, right, if something has been broken or you have made something by mistake, right? So yeah.
Okay. So Jaideep, from my side, I have a question for everyone. I'm sure that they want to know about this. Like what you will give. Just give me one.
Yeah, sure. So essentially,
One minute, 1 minute, Jaideep. 1 minute.
yeah,
Yeah.
sure,
So I
sure.
guess I was not alive. I have to make a live and then, with the team setting. Okay, so my question is from you for everyone that what will be your suggestion in order to make a success in a big open source program? We are not promoting we are at the Google Summer of Code or MLS Fellow or Outreach or something like this. But what Git and GitHub is an essential tool for developer, right? But
Right.
and Git and GitHub for selecting into Google Summer of Code or MLS Fellow, Git and GitHub, and there should be so many PR, the commits and all those things. Right. So what your suggestions and guidance will be all the folks who are attending the session?
Yeah, sure. So essentially, what I'll suggest that Git and GitHub is something. See, this Git and GitHub is not some. You don't think this as a domain, right? For example, if you know web development, if you know Android development, if you know maybe machine learning or anything at all, right? maybe data science or anything at all, right? So what GitHub will do is it will actually help you or enhance you to work in a collaborative environment, right? For example, if you're hired at a company or maybe if you're working at a team, right? So like multiple people will be working on some like a same thing, right? So you can actually take the use of Git and GitHub, right, wherein you can actually work in parallel, right? So this is something which everyone should learn, right, apart from the domain skills, right? Like maybe you are like practicing DSA, maybe you are working like on Android or maybe on web development, right, or something like that, maybe on iOS development, something like that. But like parallelly, everyone should be very clear with the basics of Git, right, and should be familiar with how things work on GitHub or GitLab, right, because those are the online resources or services which we'll be using, right? So essentially, I think like certainly uh, you should be very clear with the Git and GitHub, because of course it will be very helpful when you are maybe joining a company or maybe even doing a collaborative work with your own team as well, right? So this is something I think irrespective of a domain, everyone should start learning about, right? And of course, yeah, so that is something which I would suggest to all the attendees, right? Yeah.
That's excellent suggestion, Jaideep, from your side. So, Samujit, everything will be mailed to you. Thank you, Anonymous. And it is said the certificate will be provided. Your certificate will be provided. But Jaideep, one more question is like once people know technology, they have started working with the projects, they're making PR. But in order to clear the Google Summer of Code, like which project they have to make their PR, so and they're finding the issues so they can will be adding once they are sending the proposal for Google Summer of Code or MLS or something like that. Where actually
Right.
and where they can find the project, a good project.
Right, right, sure. So essentially, when I'm talking about Google Sum of Code, so for Google Sum of Code, there's something called the Google Sum of Code project archives, right? So if you just do a simple Google search, right, you will get all the past good organizations which have been participating for maybe the last 2, 3, 4 years, right? So from there essentially you can get an idea like which organizations are quite good, right? Like they are quite active, like they participate almost every year, right? So from there you can choose organizations, right? You can take a look at what kind of projects they have, right? So if you see on the Google some of code project archive, right, there you will be seeing like a lot of projects on various domains, right? So you choose domains, like for example, if you are good on with web development, like select an organization which has web development projects, right? You will be able to, like, they have got their own tags, right? Like if they have web projects, they will be having web hashtag web, or maybe if they have Android projects, they will have hashtag Android, right, associated with them, right? So you just take a look on those, right? Identify which projects interest you, right? Because this is something also very important. Like choose projects which actually interest you, right? Like it shouldn't happen that you have chosen a project and after at a certain point of time you no longer have interest in that, right? So that will be quite inefficient, right? So choose something which interests you like over a period of time, and you will be able to work on it like even after quite a number of days, right? So yeah, so that is something which I'll suggest while choosing organizations and projects, right?
Yeah. Excellent. I'm sure that everybody has the clear idea how they can get a good project and where they can make their PR in a good project and they can select a good project. Um, and a big open program as well. I guess all certificate and will be mailed to you. Don't worry regarding this. We have all the details with us. Recording if they are chat, if they are told who was active and all. So everything will be done. Don't worry regarding this. So thank you so much, guys. Now we are wrap up this call. We are about to end this call. Yeah, I guess now I am visible. All right. So everything will mail you. Don't worry. So now we are end up this call, and I'll be taking the session. All right. So what I'm saying is I'll be taking session on Microsoft Azure and the different cloud services as well, and it would be fully hands-on learning. With the practical, all the cloud concepts will be clear, and I'm sure Microsoft is providing so many trainings nowadays from so many certification of fundamental level. After attending the sessions, I'll be doing in upcoming days. So make sure you will join this. You will join those sessions. Yeah, that's all. Have a good day. And now we are end up with this call. Have a good day. You can leave this.